Hello, my sweet friends. Welcome back. I hope you are all doing well. Happy Wednesday to everyone. You know that means that we are getting back into our regular tutorial style video. And for today, we are going to be creating a hybrid album. And so I am going to bring together two different styles of album so that we can enjoy the best features from both. And so this is a really sweet Christmas album. And I am also going to be using some printables from my shop, and so this is the classic Christmas images. If you're interested in creating with this printable, I will leave a link in the description below. If that sounds good to you, then stick with me and we'll make it together. So as I mentioned, we're going to be bringing two different styles of project together. And the first one is that wallet fold. Now, I have made those over the years, various different sizes, and I've also kind of graduated up from using regular scrapbook paper. That is going to work well. You're going to be limited in size, and it does create a lot of bulk. I switched to Amazon wrapping paper for the shipping, and I found that worked really well, but still a little bit too thick. And now I've arrived at roll wrap. This one came from the Dollar Tree. This is not the beautiful Hallmark Christmas wrapping paper you're going to have for your gifts. This is just pretty standard. It is very thin, and in this instance, it's a craft color background. I probably would have chosen white for a Christmas project, but because the images I have and the pattern paper are more country inspired and heartwarming, I think it will work out great. It was actually snowing yesterday and below freezing when I could have left the house. So that one was going to be out, and I'm just going to make do with what I have. But honestly, I really love how it turned out. So I am very happy to use this. And for that roll wrap, you're going to get quite a few of these wallet fold albums out of it. So that is a good way to save money and have a shortcut. It gets you to the finishing details much faster, and we all know that is the fun part. So here are the images I'm choosing from my shop. This is the classic Christmas printable, and I just love how traditional these colors are. The images are very sweet and heartwarming, and that background is very neutral, so it's going to work with a wide range of different palettes. Now, I originally printed this, and I kind of shrank it down because I thought I wanted my tip-ins to be a little bit smaller, but I decided to go ahead and just reprint it in the original size it was designed to be. And so I'm going to set this aside for another project, and then I will use the larger print that I made. I'm gonna pair that with this mistletoe lodge paper pad. I got this from Hobby Lobby over the summer for our Christmas in July series, and it is absolutely beautiful. Many different prints, a combination of florals and geometrics. It is single-sided, but you would not know by the thickness and the quality of the paper, and the print is really beautiful. So I think pairing these together gives me a very country-inspired vibe, and I think it looks really beautiful. So the thing about this wallet fold is it's very important to get it to be exactly as square as you possibly can. And also, the larger the square you start with, the bigger the wallet fold you're going to get. So we're going to start today with a 17 by 17 inch square. I did cut that by measuring it out with my quilting ruler. I do not quilt. I can sew, but I choose not to. But I do find that to be very helpful when measuring large things. And I went off the assumption that the side of the paper would be square, and it was. So then I just measured out my 17 inches, and then I cut 2 of them for this project. Now, when we fold this, we'll arrive at a wallet that will be 6 inches high by 4 wide. And so I think that's pretty perfect for a small mini album. It helps you to go through your 12 by 12 papers without causing as much offcuts and waste. So I really like that. I'm not sure how much of this I won't be able to keep in frame, but I'm going to try and show you. I've shown this over the years, but it is pretty quick. And so it does make sense to go ahead and repeat it now in case you haven't made one of these. So like I said, you've got to have your square and then decide how big your wallet is and measure out your square according to that. So the first fold you want to make is just in half. And then you want to open that up and fold your half into half. So now you're going to have quarters. I'm going to do that for both sides. Then you want to fold in the top portion so that it is square along your fold line. And you'll do that for each of the corners. And now, more than part of this is showing, so hopefully that will be easier. You want to fold it up and have the point of that fold at the very bottom. And so this is going to be the bottom of your wallet. And you want to fold the top portion over so that the top will meet the bottom. And then you're going to tuck this into those pockets, and that will form the book. First thing I want to consider, though, is if any of this pink is going to show, will it affect the vibe of my book? And in this case, I believe it will. So I just cut an additional piece here, and I'll tuck this into my pocket so that it will hide the crease in the middle. So I'm going to push that all the way up, see how it goes all the way to the top. And I'll just take a little bit of my double-sided adhesive and add that so that it will stay in place. I did consider some butcher paper, but I wasn't sure if the wax that it's covered in would be a suitable surface to add my double-sided adhesive tape. So ultimately I decided to not do that. But now that we've got the center covered, we can just tuck those in. And you can see now how many folds we have. It would be very bulky if you were just using regular scrapbook paper. So now you've got a pocket here and a pocket here, and you'll just fold along the back there. And then you'll also have a pocket on the end of each of these sides. So this is going to be 4 by 6. That'll be the finished size of our book, and you will need 2 of these to complete the album that I'm sharing today. Okay, so now comes that hybrid part, and what I want to do is join those 2 wallet folds to a flip book cover, and that is going to make it much more sturdy. And so I actually don't have any craft paper in my stash that's just plain craft, but I did have some pattern on one side, and so I can incorporate all the layers to hide this pattern. And like I mentioned, if I had that white wrapping paper, I would have just used my regular white cardstock, but this is going to be fine. So I have this cut to be 6 inches high by 8.5 inches wide. It's scored at 4 and also 4.5. And so we're going to get that 1/2 inch spine here. Now what I want to do is make my covers a little bit sturdier and give it a nice finished edge. So I'm going to bring in 2 additional pieces, and they are each cut to be 6 high by 8 wide and scored at 4. And this is just going to wrap around that cover, and I will use our 2 glue combo for this. And I'll just lay that into the corner right along the score line. Then I'll fold over this portion and we'll have 3 layers there for thickness and sturdiness. I'll repeat that process for this side as well. Okay, so now we've got a super nice sturdy cover, and we're going to bring in the first wallet in. So I have added my adhesive here, and we're going to continue on using both of those adhesives. So I'll bring those corners together. And then I'll repeat that process for this side. Okay, so now we've got our 2 wallet folds, and you'll notice that there is a fairly sizable gap between. We're going to fill that in with an additional book layer. So this is going to continue on with our flip book style of project. So this last piece for the base is going to be 6 inches high by 8 1/4 wide. It's scored at 4 and also 4 1/4. So this is going to fill that gap in between. So I put my adhesive on here, and then I'll add my second adhesive. And then bring these corners together. And you can see how I've added that paper so that the pattern was on the inside, and now I've kind of covered that up well so that it won't show. Now I'll repeat that process for this side as well. I'm going to fold the book over now and rest it on its spine and bring those other 2 bits together so that I know it will fall where I need it to on the spine. It's going to very carefully press all of these together so I get a very good contact. So now we have our hybrid cover, and the next thing I want to do is fill this with my cardstock and pattern paper. Before I add those pattern paper and cardstock, I did want to mention that I came back in here and I just clipped a little bit of this off so that it didn't create bulk in this fold, and that will be covered by the next layer. So that's just one way to reduce a little bit of the volume for that spine. And so now the really great thing about this is going to be all of the full-size pages are the same size. So you only need one set of measurements, and that makes it much faster and easier to cut. And as I said, this is a 4x6 book, so you're going to get the maximum of the use out of a 12x12 sheet of paper. And so my cardstock measurement is 5 7/8 by 3 7/8, and the pattern paper is 5 3/4 by 3 3/4. And I'm just putting adhesive on the top because I don't want it to get stuck when I slide this page into this pocket. So very carefully slide that in there till you get the border of the cardstock and the border of the base. So repeat that for this page as well. So that's going to cover the inside of the pocket and the back page. And now you want to cover the front of the pocket. And so I have a square cut to be 3 3/4 by 3 3/4. And then I cut it from point to point. And then I've taken my pattern paper and cut that to be 3 5/8 by 3 5/8. And I cut that from point to point. And then I added those so that I would get my layering of my border there. You want to make sure to use a non-directional pattern for this because this paper will be right side up, but now it will be on its side. So that way you will have a perfect pattern. And this will go right onto the front of the pocket, and you're going to continue to get the border from the base and the border from the cardstock. I'm just picking a geometric to go with my all over pattern. In this case, beautiful branches and berries so that those two patterns don't look too busy when they're next to each other. So this will be our first wallet fold. I'm going to skip that center and go to the second wallet fold. And I'll just repeat that same process. So now you can see this is really starting to bulk up nice and be very good and sturdy. So now I want to incorporate some full-size page flips here. And so I have my cardstock cut to be 5 7/8 by 7 3/4 and scored at 3 7/8. And I want to add it so that they flip outward. And so I'll add one to this side. And then we're going to continue on with that same measurement for our pattern paper as the other pages. And then I want to add a second pattern to the front. But before I adhere it to that page, I want to include the first of those images for my printable. And so I just added that to some additional cardstock and added a little flap so that I could tuck that around the back side of this pattern paper and secure it. And that will sandwich it between the layers and be well secured. So now I'm just going to add this to the front of that page flip. I have one prepared for this side as well. So the tip-ins will open and then the flip pages will open as well. I'm leaving the back side of these without paper so that journaling can be added, but if you want to add a coordinating pattern paper, you would be more than happy with how that looks. And so I have actually added a fair bit of stickles, and I always hold this up thinking it will show, but it never does. I just feel better for the effort, I guess. But I picked a couple that went together for these images, and then I'm going to actually add more of those images to the pockets. So this will be another place to add either a picture or some journaling. And I did go ahead and add that cardstock, make them more sturdy, and quite a lot of the stickling as well. So I'm just going to tuck these into the pockets for those pocket pages. The last thing I want to add, of course, is a tab top insert to add to the end pocket. So we'll have those tabs showing from the side. And so I have my cardstock cut to be 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And then I punched a 2.5 inch tab with my envelope punch board. And then I cut off the excess so that tab will show. Then I have my pattern paper here cut to be 3 3/4 by 5 3/8. So I'm going to get a nice border all the way around, and I did finish the front and back. So let's go ahead and add these. This is just going to add a lot of bulk and sturdiness. And I used the offcuts for that so that I would not leave any paper behind. I also have these tabs cut specifically to leave a gap in the middle because I want to wrap this with my ribbon as a closure. You can tell that I missed a pocket, so I went back and just moved those up, and I'm alternating the tab from top to bottom throughout so that it looks nice and full. Okay, so this is what it looks like with all those paper layers added. I'm so impressed with how nice and thick and bulky it has gotten. So I'm just going to go ahead and cover the back with this beautiful buffalo plaid, and that way it will be finished all the way around. We have added a bit of this ribbon here, a stitch satin from Really Reasonable Ribbon, and it coordinates perfectly with those images, and that will be my closure so that I can keep all of the inside stuff inside instead of coming out. And so I'm just going to cover that with another piece of that buffalo plaid. This is a little bit of a smaller cover than what I'm used to working in. So rather than having a large doily, I just die cut a very simple snowflake here, and then I cut that into two portions, and I'm going to add one at the top and one at the bottom so that I can utilize all of that die cut and not have most of it hidden behind the image. This is the one I picked for the cover, those sweet little foxes with their little scarves on and the berries as their hair. And now I'm just going to set this in where I think it looks good. And because I have a large flower arrangement, I can go ahead and have a cut edge showing on this side. I just don't want any of those fragile bits sticking over the edge. Now I've got those attached where I want, and you can see that I have added my image to the cardstock, and then I also put spacers so that I can build dimension. Some of those spacers are covered with paper, so I'll just add a little bit of extra hot glue there to make sure that this is well secured. I think that snowflake really adds a nice pop of brightness there. Here's some of my flowers. I used some offcuts to create these, finish them with double head stamens from Really Reasonable Ribbon. I've added my loopy twine bow and my netting and some beautiful little velvety kind of leaves here that came from a set that I had in my stash. And then I added a little bit of burlap ribbon here with a red stitch detail, just because I feel like this project is very country inspired, and so I thought that went along really well. You see I have to anchor my flowers pretty low here so that I don't cover up too much of my image, but that is fine. And you can see that I've covered the cut edge of my snowflake there. Since we're working with a snowflake in the background, I've added 2 of these charms to string so that I can hold them where I want them. I'll just lay those strings into some hot glue. Just cut off the excess and cover those cut ends with a button. And then last but not least, I'll add a couple of sequins here as details, and I'll put 2 on top of my image and then 1 going down onto that snowflake. So if this is the kind of project that inspires you to create, let me know in the comments if you'd like to see more of our hybrid style albums so I can plan for those in the future. And if you are interested in this printable, I will link that in the description, and also links for the beautiful trims from Really Reasonable Ribbon, and our socials can be found there as well. If you haven't already, I would love for you to subscribe to join my crafty little family, and make sure to leave a comment and a big thumbs up for this video. As always, I'm wishing you a happy and productive day, and I thank you so much for watching. Bye.